To other news now, the Pentagon is canceling its contract with the Rendon Group. That's the company which was going to look into the previous work of journalists applying to be embedded reporters with the U.S. Army in Afghanistan. Critics saw it as an attempt to influence media coverage of the war. We can now cross live to our Washington correspondent, Priya Sridhar. To you, Priya, now.
Thanks. Well, the United States military has decided to cancel its partnership with a controversial public relations firm after the story hit newswaves last week. U.S. public affairs officers in Afghanistan said that reporters wishing to embed with military units would be subject to a background check. Now, the PR firm would look at a journalist's previous work and categorize it into a positive or negative category, depending on whether it put the United States in a positive or negative light. Now, the public affairs officers said that they were simply using this information to find out what kind of reporters they were dealing with. But many thought there was more to it than that. Well, joining me to discuss these latest developments is Kevin Barron from the Stars and Stripes newspaper. Kevin, thanks so much for joining me. First of all, your newspaper was the one that kind of broke this story. How do you guys feel about these latest developments?
Well, it was a nice surprise over the weekend to hear the news and to be able to report it. I think it's it's not the end of the story, though, for us, just the end of this Rendon contract.
And so why do you think that they decided to cancel this partnership?
Well, the press officers that we had interviewed and wrote about in our stories explained how this Rendon profile of a reporter would kind of be, one item in a larger packet of information that they could get at their hands, and how often these decisions are really left to individual press officers far afield to decide based on the previous work, some of which was in these profiles, whether or not a reporter should be given his embedded request or steered in a certain direction. And that's what goes against the whole spirit and the rules of the embedded system.
So why do you think they wanted to do these background checks in the first place?
Well, that's the original intent of these is still unclear. These were approved by a previous command who is no longer in charge at the media offices in Afghanistan. But the Rendon itself said, this kind of activity is something they've done for a long time, and it goes back far. Now, perhaps it was a benign use, and that may have been the original intent. That may have even been Rendon's intent when they handed them out, but that's not how they were being used by the officers who, talked to us.
And I know that you said that you guys are planning to pursue this story a little bit more. Can you give us some hints about what else we might be hearing about?
Well, again, what I said, there's a larger history of Rendon and how this information is used, and as well as the entire embed system. This was set up in the previous administration at the outset of these wars several years ago, and we're at a point now where Afghanistan has heated up. There's more fighting, and there's a whole lot more reporters who are trying to get into Afghanistan, and they have to go through this embed system. So in the last 6 months, 8 months, all the reporters who've applied are now coming to me or telling me, saying, do you have my profile? What did this say about me? Am I going to get to go do my job?
Well, it's certainly a fascinating story, and we look forward to seeing what more coverage the Stars and Stripes newspaper will have in the future. But for now, back to you in Moscow.
Well, thank you very much, Priya. That was our correspondent in Washington, D.C., Priya Sridhar, and Kevin Barron, Washington reporter for Stars and Stripes newspaper.